From dominating daytime TV with kindness and giveaways, to workplace scandals, viral public backlash, and getting kicked out of the show business, this is how Ellen DeGeneres ruined her own career, and where she is now, blowing up. Before everything started to fall apart, Ellen was sitting at a level most TV hosts never even get close to. For years, she was almost untouchable in terms of public love and trust. Her daytime show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, which launched back in 2003, slowly grew into one of the biggest talk shows in the world, pulling in millions of subscribers, billions of views, and even winning dozens of awards, including multiple Emmys.
Congratulations to The Ellen Show, winner of 7 daytime Emmys, including Outstanding Daytime Talk Show.
But what people really loved about it was its feel-good energy. Surprise giveaways and viral celebrity moments that constantly dominated social media.
The first thing they want to do is give you $500,000.
And it wasn't just the format that worked, because Ellen herself became the brand, with her Be Kind message turning into something people genuinely associated with her personality, especially as she positioned herself as approachable, funny, and relatable in a way that made both celebrities and everyday guests feel comfortable on her stage.
I know you can wear something like this, but it's daytime, Pink.
I know, I forgot.
That's all right. People are gonna boo this. They're watching. Listen.
Now, over time, that image only grew stronger, because she built a reputation as someone who used her platform to spread positivity.
It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. All month long, we're raising money for RAD Aid. They help provide breast cancer screening and treatment for women in underserved communities.
Which is exactly why audiences trusted her so much. Additionally, her influence stretched far beyond TV, because she hosted major events like the Oscars, landed huge brand deals including CoverGirl and Vitamin Water, and consistently stayed relevant across different generations, which kept her at the center of pop culture for nearly 2 decades. But as strong as the image was, it also meant one thing, because the higher someone is placed by the public, the harder the fall hits when that perception starts to crack. And in Ellen's case, that shift came fast, loud, and very public. Number 1. The spark. Viral backlash and pandemic tone deafness. March to June 2020. On March 20, 2020, comedian Kevin T. Porter posted a tweet that seemed simple at first, but quickly turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. In the tweet, he said, "Right now we all need a little kindness." You know, like Ellen DeGeneres always talks about, she's also notoriously one of the meanest people alive. Respond to this for the most insane stories you've heard about Ellen being mean, and I'll match everyone with $2 to @LA Food Bank. And while it sounded like a joke setup, what followed didn't feel like comedy at all, because thousands of replies started pouring in. Many of them painted a very different picture of the woman audiences thought they knew. Karen Kilgariff was her head writer for 5 years until the writer's strike. When Karen wouldn't cross the picket line, she was fired and Ellen never spoke to her again. I worked at Real Food Daily, served her and Portia a brunch. She wrote a letter to the owner and complained about my chipped nail polish. Not that it was on her plate, but just that it was on my hand. I had worked till closing the night before and this was next morning. Almost got me fired. A new staff member was told, every day she picks someone different to really hate. It's not your fault. Just suck it up for the day and she'll be mean to someone else the next day. They didn't believe it, but it ended up being entirely true. Now, as the thread gained traction, the stories became more uncomfortable, with people claiming things like staff members being told not to make eye contact with her, situations where she didn't allow her staff to chew gum around her because of her sensitive nose. And even though not every story could be verified, the sheer volume of similar experiences started shaping a new narrative in real time. And that's where things began to shift, because for the first time, the Be Kind image was being challenged publicly, loudly, and in a way that spread across social media faster than any traditional media report could keep up with. However, before that conversation could even settle, April 2020 brought another moment that made things worse. Because during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Ellen recorded her show from home and made a comment comparing her lockdown experience in her mansion to being in jail.
This is like being in jail, is what it is. It's mostly because I've been wearing the same clothes for 10 days and everyone in here is gay.
Now, on its own, that might have been brushed off as a bad joke, but given the timing, when millions of people were dealing with job losses, health fears, and real uncertainty, the comparison came across as completely out of touch, and the backlash was immediate, with critics pointing out how disconnected that statement felt coming from someone living in extreme comfort. She has a huge mansion and she claims to feel like she's in prison. What a privileged Karen. She may pretend to be nice around celebs, but not around her staff. And, hey Ellen, prisoners across this country are trapped in 24-hour quarantine in cells that are probably about the size of one of your showers, and others are sleeping 3 feet away from sick inmates. and they're dying. You aren't experiencing anything close to prison. And because this was happening right after the Twitter thread gained momentum, it reinforced the growing idea that there might be a gap between Ellen's public persona and how she actually saw the world around her. But it didn't stop there, because around that same time, employees connected to her show began coming forward with even more negative allegations.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
Additionally, staff members working on the Ellen DeGeneres show were left in the dark about their pay and job security during the pandemic, which created confusion and frustration, especially since many of them were unsure whether they would continue getting paid while production shifted to Ellen filming from home. But what made it worse was the claim that Ellen hired an outside non-union tech company, Keycode Media, to tape Ellen's remote shows from her home. And that decision didn't sit well with the original team, because it gave the impression that they were being sidelined at a time when stability mattered most. But what hurt the most for the original crew of over 30 union members was the lack of communication in the hiring decision, because they were left in the dark for over a month regarding their hours or pay, and were even told to brace for 60% pay cut due to COVID struggles. They found this treatment totally inconsistent with Ellen's Be Kind message, especially as staff on other shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live were being paid in full, with Jimmy Kimmel reportedly paying them out of his own pocket during the first part of the shutdown. In Ellen's defense, according to a Warner Bros. Spokesperson, due to social distancing requirements, technical changes in the way the show is produced had to be made to comply with city ordinances and public health protocols for a remote production from Ellen's home. Additionally, the studio stated that the representatives from the union that represents the crew members, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, had signed off on hiring the non-union shop. No jobs were lost, but only 4 core crew members were used for the remote show. So at this point, the situation had escalated, because now there were questions not just about Ellen's personality, but about how her production operated behind the scenes. Nevertheless, the final push in this early phase came in June 2020, when Ellen posted a message in support of the Black Lives Matter movement following global protests, writing, "Like so many of you, I'm angry and I'm sad. People of color in this country have faced injustice for far too long. For things to change, things must change. We must commit ourselves to this change with conviction and love." And while the intention may have been supportive, the reaction told a different story, because many people saw this statement as vague and lacking substance, especially during a time when other public figures were making more direct and actionable statements. And given everything that had already happened over the previous months, the tweet was interpreted through the lens of growing criticism around her, which led to it being labeled as performative rather than meaningful, and people reacting in a way she did not expect through comments like, "You don't have to lie, Ellen. We know you're not on our side. LMFAO. F your neutrality." And the Degeneres is finally being exposed for who she really is. I knew it was only a matter of time after the stories from her staff leaked to the press. I hope this is the start of a new trend. Let's get all these bigots TFOH. So by the time June came to an end, the situation had clearly changed, because what started as a viral Twitter thread had quickly evolved into a series of moments that kept reinforcing each other. And instead of fading away, the criticism was building momentum, setting the stage for something much bigger that was about to follow. Number 2, the explosion. BuzzFeed's Toxic Workplace Expose, July 2020. Everything that had been building quietly in the background finally exploded in July 2020. This time, it wasn't tweets or vague complaints, because it came from a full investigative report that forced people to take a much closer look at what was happening behind the scenes of the Ellen DeGeneres show. On July 17, BuzzFeed News published a detailed article based on interviews with current and former employees. And unlike the earlier viral thread, this report carried a different kind of weight, because it was structured, sourced, and backed by multiple people who had actually worked on the show. Now as people started reading through it, the tone shifted immediately, because the central claim was about a workplace culture that many described as toxic, where fear, intimidation, and silence played a role in how things operated from day to day.
We were told from the very beginning, don't talk to Ellen, don't do this, you can't go into her office. It was very nerve-wracking, very stressful. We all walked on eggshells all the time.
And that's where the biggest contradiction hit, because hearing employees describe something completely different behind the scenes created a disconnect that was hard to ignore. She's only fun and kind to rich and famous people, not the people below her. She was rude to some famous people. You can notice the passive aggression in her shows as well. But what really made the report stand out were the specific allegations, because they gave people something concrete to react to, instead of just general claims about bad vibes or difficult personalities. For example, one black female employee described experiencing repeated microaggressions while working on the show, including comments that made them feel singled out because of their race. Like when she was at a work party, one of the main writers told her, "I'm sorry, I only know the names of the white people who work here. Another coworkers awkwardly laughed it off instead of coming to her defense. And according to their account, when they tried to raise concerns, they didn't feel supported in a meaningful way. And alongside that, there were claims from other staff members who said they were let go after taking medical leave or time off for personal loss, which raised serious questions about how employees were treated during vulnerable moments. Now, individually, each of these stories was troubling, but together, they painted a much bigger picture, because they suggested a system where issues weren't being handled properly, and where people didn't feel safe speaking up without risking their jobs. Nevertheless, just as the public was trying to process all that, things escalated again only 2 weeks later, because on July 31st, BuzzFeed News released a second report, and this one took the situation to another level entirely. Unlike the first article, this follow-up report centered on allegations of sexual misconduct involving senior producers in the show, including Kevin Lehman, Ed Glavin, and Jonathan Norman. This wasn't just one or two accounts, because the report included testimonies from 36 former employees. Many of them described incidents that went beyond uncomfortable behavior, pointing toward patterns of inappropriate conduct that had gone unchecked for a long time. Some allegations involved unwanted advances. For example, one ex-employee, who chose to stay anonymous, claimed that head writer and executive producer Kevin Lehman asked him if he could give him a job or perform oral sex in a bathroom at a company party in 2013. Another said they separately saw Lehman grab a production assistant's penis. But what made it worse was the suggestion that complaints either weren't taken seriously or didn't lead to meaningful consequences, because former employees said there was no formal process to confidentially file complaints. So at this point, the conversation shifted again, because it was no longer just about Ellen's public image or whether she was personally kind or not. It became about the structure of the show itself, and whether leadership had allowed these issues to exist in the first place. However, this also raised an important question that people kept coming back to, because even if Ellen wasn't directly involved in every allegation, many felt that as the face of the show, she carried responsibility for what was happening under her name. That idea stuck, because the entire brand of the show had been built around her personality, which meant that any major failure within the workplace naturally reflected back on her, whether she intended it or not. So by the end of July 2020, the situation had completely changed, because what started as a viral conversation had turned into a full-blown scandal backed by detailed reporting, multiple testimonies, and serious allegations that couldn't be brushed aside as rumors. And more importantly, the narrative had shifted from isolated incidents to something much bigger, because now, people were looking at the show as a system that may have enabled harmful behavior, rather than just a workplace with a few bad moments. Unfortunately for Ellen, this was the turning point where the damage became difficult to contain, because once that level of reporting entered the conversation, the story wasn't going away, and the pressure to respond was only going to grow from there. Number 3, the final chapter, retirement and collapse, 2022 to 2024. Nevertheless, after months of backlash, investigations, and a steady drop in public trust, the story didn't drag on forever, because by May 2022, Ellen Degeneres brought the Ellen Degeneres Show to an official end, closing the curtain in a 19-year run that once defined daytime television.
Welcome to our very last show. I walked out here 19 years ago and I said that this is the start of a relationship, and today is not the end of a relationship, it's more of a little break.
Now, on the surface, the show's ending wasn't framed as a direct result of the controversy, because Ellen had announced the decision earlier.
Today, I am announcing that next season, season 19, is going to be my last season.
But the timing made it hard to separate the two, especially since ratings had dropped and the public conversation around her had shifted so dramatically from where it used to be. And for a lot of people watching, that final season felt different, because even though the format stayed familiar, the energy around it wasn't the same. However, ending the show didn't mean disappearing completely, because 2 years later, in April 2024, Ellen stepped back into the spotlight, this time through stand-up comedy, launching a tour titled Ellen's Last Stand Up Tour, which immediately signaled that she was aware of how her situation had changed. And right now, from the opening night on April 26, she didn't avoid the controversy, addressing it directly in a way that caught people's attention. She told the audience that she got kicked out of show business.
Oh yeah, I got kicked out of show business.
Which felt like a blunt acknowledgement of how far her public image had fallen. Now that line stood out because of how casually it was delivered, and it immediately became one of the most quoted moments from the tour, spreading across media outlets and social platforms. But she didn't stop there, because during the same performances, she also referred to herself as the most hated person in America, which again showed that she understood the scale of the backlash, even if she framed it through humor. And while some fans appreciated that level of honesty, others saw it differently. Nevertheless, the tour itself still drew attention, because after years away from stand-up, people were curious to see how she would handle the moment, and whether she could reconnect with the audiences in a more personal setting without the structure of a daytime show. Now, as the tour continued into mid-2024, another major announcement followed, because Ellen confirmed that she was working on what would be her final Netflix special, and more importantly, she made it clear that this would be a full step away from public entertainment, and that decision mattered, because it was about closing a chapter that had defined her career for decades, from stand-up stages in the 1980s to becoming one of the most recognizable faces in television. By July 2024, she doubled down on that message during her tour, telling audiences that after the special, they wouldn't be seeing her again, effectively confirming her retirement from mainstream entertainment. So at that point, the situation had come full circle, because the same person who once dominated daytime TV, hosted major award shows, and built a brand around positivity was now stepping away from the spotlight entirely. Unfortunately, that exit didn't feel like a victory lap, because it came after years of controversy, and even though she still had supporters, the broader perception had clearly shifted, and that's what makes this final chapter stand out. So by the time 2024 came to an end, there wasn't really a question left about where things stood, because Ellen had already said it herself on stage. The version of her career that once made her one of the most loved figures in television had come to a close. Number 4. The Diddy controversy. Resurfaced ties, 2024. However, just when it looked like Ellen had already stepped away and the conversation around her was starting to slow down, September 2024 pulled her name right back into the spotlight. But this time, it was about her connections in the industry. Specifically speaking, when Sean Diddy Combs was arrested and charged with serious federal offenses, including racketeering, sex trafficking by force and transportation to engage in prostitution, as the news of the case spread, people began looking at his past relationships, his appearances, and the circles he moved in. Now, one of those connections that quickly resurfaced was his long-standing relationship with Ellen, because over the years, Diddy had appeared in the Ellen DeGeneres show more than a dozen times between 2006 and 2022, often in lighthearted segments that showed them joking around, dancing, and clearly having a friendly dynamic on camera. At the time, those appearances didn't raise any eyebrows, because celebrity friendships like that were common in talk shows. But given the disturbing allegations against Diddy and his infamous freak-off parties, people started revisiting those moments with a completely different perspective.
So sweet, thank you. How come it's for Portia and not me? All right. You roll that.
Okay,
all right.
I keep this. Take two if the joke didn't work.
No, it's okay.
I don't want no problems.
No, it's okay.
No, hold on.
Yes, Ellen, tell us how far back you and the Diddler go. He's always letting us know who's all in on it, right in front of us.
Yo, Ellen, we go so far back. You don't tell these people how far back we go.
And when an old tweet from 2016 resurfaced, it made everything worse, because Ellen had once referred to Diddy as Cuddle McSnuggle Stuff, which originally came across as a playful joke. But in the context of the new allegations, it suddenly felt uncomfortable to a lot of people. Now the issue is what the wording represented, because it reminded people how close and friendly they had appeared publicly, and it raised questions about how well she really knew him. The feds would likely know why, Ellen. What do you know? What exactly was he snuggling, Ellen? However, it's important to separate what's actually confirmed from what's speculation, because while the connection between Ellen and Diddy is well documented through years of public appearances, there has never been any evidence linking her to the crimes Diddy was accused of, and no official investigation has suggested otherwise. Nevertheless, in the age of social media, that distinction doesn't always hold, because once people start connecting dots, even loosely, narratives can form quickly. And in Ellen's case, her name being tied to someone who's in prison for serious charges was enough to bring her back into online debates, and that's where another layer of speculation entered the picture, because some people began bringing up Stephen Twitch Boss, the longtime DJ and co-executive producer in her show, who passed away in 2022. Now, his death had already been widely reported as a suicide, but after Diddy's arrest, certain online communities started pushing theories suggesting that he might have known damaging information about powerful figures, including Ellen and Diddy. Despite there being no credible evidence to support those claims, Twitch was murdered. I believe that Twitch was working with the FBI as an informant about the sexual assaults and trafficking that was happening with Diddy. Twitch reportedly attended Diddy parties. Twitch was bisexual. Diddy's freak-offs were parties of gang rapes of women and gay sex participated in by Diddy and other celebrities and athletes. The parties were recorded entertainment and blackmail material to protect Diddy and other elites. These theories spread quickly, but they remained exactly that, unverified and unsupported by any official findings, which is something multiple fact-checking outlets and media reports emphasized as the rumors gained traction. However, even without proof, the damage in terms of perception was already happening, because Ellen's name being pulled into conversations surrounding such serious allegations added another layer to her already complicated public image. And for someone who had just recently stepped away from the spotlight, this kind of renewed attention was about being associated, even indirectly, with one of the biggest scandals in the entertainment industry at that moment. So by the end of 2024, the situation had shifted again, because even though Ellen wasn't legally charged with any wrongdoing in connection to Diddy's case, her past friendship with him was not a good look. Number 5. The Epstein Files Conspiracy, 2026. But just when it seemed like the noise around Ellen DeGeneres had finally started to settle, early 2026 brought her name back into the spotlight again. And this time, it was her connection to Jeffrey Epstein. In February 2026, a new wave of online discussion started after the Epstein files were released publicly. And as expected, people immediately began combing through the names mentioned, trying to link public figures to the case. Now, this kind of situation tends to move fast online, because once documents like that become public, social media users start pulling out names without context. In Ellen's case, her name appearing anywhere in those files was enough to trigger a storm of speculations. However, what followed went far beyond the Diddy case, because within days, sickening claims began circulating. Some of them were so extreme that they quickly grabbed attention, even though they had not been proven yet. One of the most viral claims came in a tweet that claimed, "The Epstein files expose Ellen DeGeneres as Hollywood's most prolific cannibal. She ate children's flesh." This sounds unbelievable on its face, but the way it spread shows just how quickly speculation can take hold when people are already primed to believe negative narratives about someone. Yet it didn't stop at just text posts, because alongside those claims, there were videos and audio clips being shared that were presented as evidence, including what was described as a whistleblower recording making serious accusations against her. Now, at first glance, some of these clips looked convincing to casual viewers, because they were edited in a way that mimicked real interviews or insider leaks. But as experts started analyzing them, it became clear that they weren't authentic. In fact, many of these recordings were identified as AI-generated deepfakes, which is something that has become increasingly common in online misinformation campaigns. And once that detail came out, it changed how the situation is viewed, as the entire narrative was built on fabricated content designed to go viral. Nevertheless, the speed at which those claims spread still had an impact, because even after being debunked, the association between Ellen's name and those accusations had already reached a wide audience, which is something that's difficult to reverse once it's out there. Fortunately, this is where established fact-checking organizations like PolitiFact and Snopes stepped in, both of which reviewed the claims in detail and provided clear conclusions. Their findings were straightforward, because while Ellen's name did appear in the broader set of documents related to Epstein, there was no evidence linking her to any criminal activity. However, Ellen, and many other Hollywood celebrities have time and again been linked to the infamous Pizzagate conspiracy, a theory that went viral during the 2016 United States presidential election cycle, falsely claiming that the New York City Police Department had discovered a pedophile ring linked to members of the Democratic Party while searching through Anthony Weiner's emails. In regard to Pizzagate, most users allege that many prominent personalities have participated in it and even used code words to communicate and get access to minors. The code words included words a normal person would not suspect, such as pizza to mean girl, hot dog to mean boys, cheese to refer to little girl, pasta to refer to little boy. As unbelievable and yet sickening as these claims sounded, people dug up past clips that feature Ellen distributing slices of pizza during the 2014 Oscars as a sick joke to support the claims.
We have cheese. Brad, Angie, yes? Okay. Who's your favorite movie star? They're here. Who do you want to talk to?
It was never pizza. It was never pizza. Child auction right in front of our eyes. While most of these claims are online speculations, there have been no official reports of Ellen being involved in any wrongdoing, including Pizzagate or some dark satanic rituals involving children. But people also wondered why Ellen DeGeneres' show setting was similar to the features of Epstein Island's alleged Temple of Moloch, an ancient figure associated with child sacrifice in biblical and mythological contexts. And in a way, it reinforced the same pattern that had been playing out for years, because once someone's reputation takes a hit, even coincidentally unrelated or false claims can gain traction faster, simply because the audience is already questioning what they thought they knew. Number 6. Where Ellen DeGeneres is as of 2026. Now by 2026, the story around Ellen isn't really about what she's doing next, because at this point, it's more about where she's ended up after everything that happened over the past few years. However, she hasn't disappeared completely, because she's still living a very private but comfortable life, splitting her time between the United States and the United Kingdom alongside her wife, Portia de Rossi, and for the most part, staying away from the kind of public spotlight that once defined her career. In early 2026, reports showed that Ellen purchased a $27 million mansion in Montecito, California, which brought her back into the US property scene This wasn't seen as a full return, because the home is widely described as more of a seasonal place where she spends part of the year, especially since the couple wanted to spend the winter in Montecito. Nevertheless, her main base is now the Cotswolds region in England, where she and Portia have settled into a quieter routine, far from the daily production schedules, studio audiences, and media attention that used to be part of her life for nearly 2 decades. And when Ellen was asked about her decision to suddenly relocate to the UK, she blamed Donald Trump being elected for the second time, and also stated that it had nothing to do with the Epstein files release, even though she got out of the US just a few days before the files were released. Unfortunately, even though she's no longer that much active in mainstream entertainment, many people still view her through the lens of the controversies that unfolded starting in 2020, saying things like she left right after her show scandal and Diddy's investigation. She said she left because of Trump. She retired from Diddy's pizza parties. Now that doesn't mean everyone sees her the same way, because she still has longtime fans who remember her earlier work and the impact she's had on daytime television, but the broader narrative has clearly shifted. And for many, her name's now associated more with her downfall than her success.